of a sudden you could just see Pam go. I was like, that's not Jess, that's Jordan. So anyway, I thought it was funny. We are in Proverbs, and we're going to be, just find the book of Proverbs. I'm going to have some references for them a little quickly. I think I want you to know this. Yesterday at the men's breakfast, Tony's been doing some good stuff with us, men's breakfast. And I got to tell you, Tony, I left the breakfast, and I came over here and I changed my sermon from what I was working on to basically swipe what you did yesterday. I'm going to take it a little further. It's going to be a little more spread thinly. But I want to talk about character, 6 pillars of character. Tony had 12 of them yesterday. He got them from the Boy Scouts, and they're still a good one. And I think that everything Tony has in his 12 fit in the 6 that I'm bringing out today. If not, Tony, tell me, we'll do a whole sermon on the missing character quality later on. I like this. I like to talk about character. Character is important. In Proverbs 22:1, it says this: a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. A good name is to be chosen rather than riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. Proverbs 22:1. It's talking about what your name is worth, the value of your name. I remember when I was running the drug and alcohol facility in town called Youth Track. I would always try to talk to the kids, and I'd like, if you're going to sell your name out, don't do it for like 50 cents. Make it at least like $5. And you're selling your name for 50 cents, your good word for 50 cents. It's just not worth it. And they go, what would you sell your name out for? And I go, at least like $500. I might lie to somebody for $500, and they go, really? And I go, probably not. I just don't want to do it. And I've had those opportunities in my life. I think we all have opportunity to kind of seek fortune or silver or gold as opposed to our good name. There was a time that I know I did this. I was trying to think before I came in today, like, what is the most I've ever had to turn down in order to kind of keep my character? And I had an experience. It was about 2 years after we moved into this building. And you can't tell it now because of COVID and everything, but when we first moved into the building, everything was kind of, it was going really, really well. We had big crowds every week, and we filled up the building, and we still had the pews then. And so you had the forced seating in the pews, and the stage went out here, but it was jam-packed and had people in the back. And a couple years after we had gotten over to the building, there was a fellow that came to church one Sunday. He sat in the back, and when it was over, he asked me like 2 questions about the sermon. And I answered him and thought, I asked when you're from town. He goes, no, I'm just kind of passing through over here for a while. The next Sunday, he was back again. And after church, he said, hey, I'd like to talk to you for just a minute. And I'm like, all right. And he told me, he goes, I'm from a place in Michigan, and I am here on behalf of my church, and I don't know how he got my name. He never told me that or whatever, but he came to church twice. I know he talked to a couple people in the church during the course of the week, but he offered me, he said, we really would like for you to come to Michigan to preach for us in Buell Hall. That's Southern Baptist Church talk for saying we want to hire you away from where you are. And he asked me how much I got paid. And I told him, and he goes, no, I mean for your salary. And I go, that's it. And his eyebrows went up, but I could see he smiled a little bit. And I don't know what he's really looking for, but I'm like, I'm just not interested. We moved to this new building. I've told the church that they have me good, bad, or ugly. And he's like, well, we'd really like for you to consider this. And during the course of the next 3 days, I said no on Sunday. I said no on Sunday night. On Monday, he calls and he goes, how much is your student loan? Because somehow he knew I had that. And this was right when I was Dave Ramsey and out of my student loan. I'm going to tell you guys something about student loans. I borrowed $23,000 to go to college. And when he asked me the question, how much is my student loan? My answer to him without lying was $77,000. Right? Now it's zero. I got rid of that sucker. But that's a lesson that you can learn all. It might be better than the whole sermon. Just know that. That's how borrowing money works. But I told him $77,000. And he goes, we will pay your student loan if you will come and preach 2 Sundays for us. And I'm like, a payment? And he's like, get off. And I was like, oh. Now I've got some money on the table for what's my word worth? What's my character worth? And it's at least $77,000 in an all-expense-paid trip to somewhere in Michigan. It said it was, and in fact, it was about 30 miles away from where one of my Belarusian interpreters was getting married during the time he would have wanted me to be there. So I could have got a free trip to a wedding too, and that was more tempting. And I had a couple of things on my thing. I knew I wasn't going to leave, but I could have went and preached for 2 weeks and got my student loan paid off. But that would have been dishonest to them. And he told me, you don't have to sign on. We just want you to preach. We think we can convince you. And he talked about the church and what it was. And then he started using like you guys against me. Just a little bit. He's like, your church would be better off with somebody else. And we need what you are. Your church needs what comes next. And I'm like, that might be true, but it's still not what I said I would do. And the salary package was really high. And I don't know how much the total would have been, but I know that my word was worth more than that. And character's an interesting thing. It's not important to everybody anymore. In fact, as I was talking about this, we did the men's prayer breakfast yesterday at the park across the street. About 2 minutes before we were done, I'm like, I'm going to do this instead of what I'm working on. What I was working on, I can do any other time. We're going through Proverbs for a while. And as I walked over, I fired out the notes. The notes that are on the board that you can see right now, I finished those in about maybe 3.5 minutes, as long as it took me to type everything. And I was done with my notes, and I'm ready to roll with this, and ready to go. But I got to tell you, I went home and I was kind of spending some time reading a couple of things to get myself thinking about this again and stuff. And I was kind of discouraged to read that there has been a foundational shift in thinking. In the last, really, they began marking it at 1960 to 65, but they say that it's really taken root between 1985 and today. And the question is like, one of the things I would say about character in general is character has an outward approval. That if you're a person of high character, the world generally appreciates that. And it was one of the things I was ready to say when I got up here. There's a good reason to have character because of the outward approval. And you could literally almost say that it's good business to have good character. It always has been in the past. It's like you can trust that person. And so whether it's a business or a friendship or whatever, character has its own reward. But since 1985, the approval of good character in other people has gone from around 98% in America to around 30% in America. Can you believe that? It says it's one of the most noticeable drop-offs. And the example they used was Tim Tebow. In 1965, Tim Tebow would have been elected president as soon as he was done playing football. But in 2010, Tim Tebow is universally loved and universally hated. He's both. There's nobody in the middle. And why do people hate Tim Tebow? The number one reason people hate Tim Tebow is because he thinks he's better than everybody else. Tim Tebow has lived his entire adult life, even from a middle teenager, being recorded every single day. Everything he does is recorded. There is no record of him one time anywhere ever saying that he was better than anybody else. But they hate him because he thinks he's better than anybody else. Demaryius Thomas is a receiver for the Broncos. Demaryius Thomas hated Tim Tebow. Hated him a lot. Even the whole time he played with him until he left. But Demaryius Thomas changed his mind a couple of years after they weren't playing together anymore. Because somebody told him, he's like, why do you hate Tebow so much? And it's because he thinks he's better than me. And the guy goes, as a teammate, the guy says, Tebow never told you he was better than you. And Thomas is like, no, he didn't. Why do you think he thinks he's better than you? And the guy goes, I know why you think that. You think that because he is better than you. And he's better than me. And Demaryius Thomas said, as soon as I was confronted with that, I kind of recognized that it was true. I hated him because he was better than me, not because he said he was better than me. But I want to challenge you guys today, especially if you're a little bit younger. You may have the same disdain for high character. It may look pretentious and stuck up and arrogant and egotistical and superior even. And I think that a lot of people are perceiving good character as being something that is superior. And I want to challenge you that, like last week I mentioned Ralph Waldo Emerson. I'll mention him again. I always call him Ralph Waldo. I think if I knew him, that's what I would call him. Emerson is the guy. And I would have had a hard time talking Emerson into coming to church here, just so you know. If he would have went to church anywhere on Sunday, he'd go down to the Unitarian Church. And that's what he was. And I don't know that Emerson had a super high opinion of Christ, but he wasn't stupid. And one of the things that Emerson said was, the only reward of virtue is virtue. But it's an amazing reward. Somebody like me that's a little bit older and has tried to live this out a little bit. I'm not saying that I have the greatest character either. In fact, when we go through this in a minute, you're going to be saying, boy, Darren, it's a good thing you can talk about it because I maybe haven't seen you do it that well. And I can at least talk about it. So give me a break there. But I really have felt that reward. The reward of virtue as being its own self-reward. Doing the right thing, actually just paying off and being a reward for self. And so I want to challenge you, before we even start, to maybe give character a chance if it's something that you have not thought highly of, if it's something that actually irritates you or rubs you the wrong way or seems pretentious. I want to talk to you about the wisdom of the Proverbs, 3,000-year-old writings that we're looking at today. The wisdom of the Proverbs is going through the course of history and establishing the idea that character is worth having. There's two enemies to character. Good names to be chosen rather than riches. Favor is better than silver and gold. There's two enemies to this. The first one I would say is the ethic of self-interest. If your primary ethos in life is to look out for number one, and you being that number one person in your life, that's an enemy to character. It's a natural enemy to character. Steph and I have been reading. I read almost every night to Steph. I would say 29 out of 30 nights in a month. We read books, and I usually just read out loud, and she falls asleep. And one night a month, I'll go in the room, and she will be laid across the bed like this, with her face like hanging over the side, and not even undressed or anything. And I'm like, I don't think this is a reading night. I think she's done. But all the rest of the nights I read, and I read about a chapter, a page and a half of the chapter. She laughs no matter what I just said. and the man faced a terrible death. And and when she laughs, I know she's just almost done. And so I don't stop reading. I finish reading the chapter because it would take forever if we didn't do it that way. And we've been reading Mutiny on the Bounty. And Mutiny on the Bounty was written 100 years ago, just about exactly. It's telling a basically true story from 230 years ago. And Captain Bligh was a real man, and Fletcher Christian was a real person, and the Bounty was a real ship, and it tells the story of the Mutiny on the Bounty, and everything about the story speaks of character. Even Bligh, at the part of the deal is the narrator of the story is accused by Bligh of being a mutineer when he wasn't, and there was no doubt that he wasn't a mutineer. And Bligh, just because of his blind rage and his temper, lumped him in with the mutineers, and he was actually sentenced to death for a period, but some guy who was thought lost at sea that could corroborate some testimony was found and saved his life right at the very end. And the narrator, though, was never angry at Bligh for the false characterization of his own character. You know why? Because it was beyond his ability to comprehend that Bligh would be lying from his own perspective. He's like, Bligh absolutely believed I was guilty. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it. And it's not even a part of the book for him to fight the fact that Captain Bligh was so wrong about his attack on Byam's character. And it cost Byam his happiness. It cost him his wife and his daughter. It cost him 3 years of being in prison on ships. And it was hard, but it never even occurred to him to doubt the word of Bligh, because Bligh was a gentleman. Even though he had bad temper, and even though he wasn't seeing things clearly, the stuff we're talking about, he believed to be true of Captain Bligh. And it was a different world, no doubt. But self-interest was not even a factor in developing a person of character. You would go to the gallows as a man and a Christian, which one of the men that died in the mutiny, he's like, I'm going to face it as a man and as a Christian, even though it was unfair to him because his own self-interest was so subjugated to the idea of something higher. And it's an interesting and it's amazing thing. It's the story of Jesus, really, when you think about it. Jesus faced the same accusations that Tim Tebow has, and even worse. And Jesus had the benefit of actually not having any guilt, of knowing himself and knowing who he was, and knowing the truth of his story and the truth of everything about him from a wide perspective. And yet Jesus didn't fight back that way either. If Jesus would have used self-interest, which he had full right to, according to everything that we understand these days, I did not do anything. I shouldn't be being put to death. I am who I say I am. I'm not lying. I shouldn't be put to death. He could have invoked self-interest and avoided the cross, and he didn't. And there's a lesson there for us that sometimes there's worse things. There are worse things in this world than dying. And this verse is kind of talking about that. Losing your good name could possibly be a worse thing than dying. Talking about Tebow, and I know we've got a little bit of a young crowd, but you know that he has shared that he rarely had a day where he wasn't approached by young women whose entire intent was to catch him in a sexual indiscretion. And that's all they were about. And he said if he ever had a day that he wasn't facing that, that was when he never saw anybody that day. Spend the whole day in his hospital in the Philippines that he built or whatever. But otherwise, he's facing it every day. Temptation after temptation after temptation. And saying no, no, no. And people hated him for it. And I wanted to, there are worse things in this world than just getting what you want, because the pursuit of happiness is not. It's contrary to character as well. It's an enemy to building character. So self-interest, pursuit of happiness is an enemy to it. So I want to talk really quickly. I want to go through 6 pillars of character. And I don't have a ton of time, but this is wisdom from the Proverbs. This is your graduate degree in succeeding in verse 22:1. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. This is where you learn this. Michael Josephson is the guy that I use. Tony did. He started talking about the Boy Scout 12 traits or whatever, and some of the guys were remembered, and it was really kind of cool. I only did Cub Scouts for a year, and then my dad kicked me out. We had a bad Cub Scout leader. We took steaks for a cookout to our Cub Scout meeting, and my dad, when he got home, he was like, "How are the steaks?" And I had hot dogs, and I was like, "What happened to the steaks?" The Cub Scout leader took all the good meat and put it in her freezer, and then she served us steaks or hot dogs, tube steaks, and that was my Cub Scout experience. I also one day I was leaving Cub Scouts, and my parents never came and got me. They both thought the other one was doing it, and I just had a bad experience in Cub Scouts. I was a loser. It was fun, but anyway, Josephson's 6 pillars of character include these 6 pillars. And these are the words that we're going to go through. Trustworthiness, that's also the first one for the Cub Scouts, or for Boy Scouts. Trustworthiness. And it has to be the first one. Everything else is built off of it. Respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship is the last one that Josephson offers. If you Google Josephson's 6 pillars of character, you will find some very, very, very good reading. So, first pillar is trustworthiness. Proverbs 17:17, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. Integrity is such a key word in life. Integrity, it's got the same word history as the word integer. An integer means whole number, 1, and that means it's undivided. And so what this is talking about is trustworthiness is, and to a large degree, it has the sense that the things that I do are also the things that I say, or the things that I said I would do, and I'm not gonna show myself to be 2 different people. Trustworthiness can also be seen in 11:13. It says, "Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps the thing covered." There's an idea that's kind of shown from this that a person who's trustworthy, you can trust them even when they're not there. They're not slandering and revealing secrets to you when they're out and about. I threw this verse in just because it's the verse Zach talked about yesterday at the men's Bible study, and I like that idea. What I want us to think about as trustworthiness is a couple of things real fast. Honesty in communication and action are paramount in word and deed. That's communication and action. Can I be trustworthy in the things that I've said? When we moved to this building, it was a big risk. We had the tiny little building that we that almost had paid off, and it worked. It was about the same size as one of the wood areas on the carpet. If you see the floor, one piece of the chunk of wood was about the size of our entire sanctuary. We were cramming at Easter. We'd get 120 people in there and seated, which was really hard to believe. Have you ever seen the thing where you sit on the lap of the person behind you and then somebody else sits on your lap and there doesn't even have to be chairs? That's how we did it. And we didn't really do it that way, but it was close. And our mortgage payment was seems like it was like $400 a month. And we knew if we moved to this building, if we bought this building, that we would soon have a mortgage payment of at least $3,000, maybe as much as $4,000 a month. And we're like, well, that's hardly what we take in. But I think this is what God was telling us to do. And I put my name on top of what God was telling us to do. I watch all these Westerns, and Walter Brennan talks about John Wayne in a couple of different movies. Because John Wayne will kill you, then he'll bury you, and he'll read words over you. And the words he reads, he always pulls out a Bible and he reads words over you. In Red River, Walter Brennan's like, I don't know. In fact, it's not Walter Brennan, it's Noah Beery. Because I don't know why he goes around shooting people and then bringing the Lord in on his business. And I think that there's sort of a fear of that from pastoring. But hey, I did. I told the church that I thought we needed to be here. I told them that I thought God was saying this, and I put my name on it. And there's no way that we hadn't even really got started yet that I was going to bail out and not live up to my responsibility. If I said that God was asking us to do this, I needed to stay here and be a part of us doing this. We need to be honest in communication and action. I think be reliable in what you say and what you'll do. Don't do false communications with people. Don't do like half communications. One of the things I used, for example, yesterday, I set my alarm to be at the men's breakfast yesterday for this morning. And so it was like at 7:55, I just woke up. And the first thing I thought when I woke up is, it's not Sunday morning, it's Saturday. I set my alarm on the wrong day, and I need to be there. And I texted Zach, I'm on my way, and I got there, and I told everybody I was stupid. I did it wrong. I could have blamed it on traffic or, got something going about something, but I was wrong. I was like, whenever you always have an excuse for something, you hinder your trustworthiness. Just take responsibility if it's your responsibility. Do what you can do to be reliable that way. Don't tell somebody, if somebody says, hey, I'm moving on the weekend, could you help me? Don't go, you know what, I'll try, if you don't intend to be there. If you're not going to be there, say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I might have another responsibility. I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you that if you have another responsibility, just say it. Sometimes we have a perfectly good excuse not to be there, helping people to move. We're too afraid to just say, no, I've got another responsibility. Be honest in your communication. Do what you say you're going to do. Be loyal and keep promises. One of my favorite things about my son, Leeson, is I think one of his highest qualities is loyalty. And I know that I've seen that. I know that the best things I've ever heard that encourage me about him have to do with loyalty. And I love when he played basketball. When he got hurt as a sophomore and as a junior, he didn't play enough to letter. But we went to the year-end thing and he lettered anyway. And I was talking to the coach and I was like, hey, Gleason didn't play enough to letter. And Dutch goes, there's nobody on the team that deserves a letter more than him. And he goes, there is nobody in this district that has to practice against Gleason. And he goes, he's a team player, and I love that. And it speaks well of a person's character, even when we're only talking about basketball. To be loyal is to be a great thing. Keep your promises. Second pillar that Joseph talks about is respect. Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence or stand in the place of the great. When we talk about respect and character, there's a degree to which we can say, be someone that people will respect. But that's only a slight degree, because if you do the other 5 things, that's going to happen. What this is talking about really is giving respect. So don't put yourself above other people. There's a lot of folks that the first thing they do is kind of make sure that they puff themselves up and spread their wings, and that everyone can see their peacock feathers immediately from the start, so you know where your place is with them in the room. Don't be that person. Offer respect. A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. One of the things about respecting other people is when other people have a different opinion than you, especially one that is offering instruction to you, it's a thing of great character to be able to say, I want to know if what they're saying is actually helpful to me, much more than I want to defend myself from what they're saying. if there's anything that drives me crazy in this world, it's when somebody is doing something stupid and they're kind of being asked to back it down, and they just can't do it. We live in a culture that's so difficult. So a lady yesterday, I went to the gas station, and when I walked in, she's given this guy grief about the fact that he has the Confederate flag on his shirt. And it's a little logo. And she's just hollering at him, and he's like, I don't even know what it is. And it's on the back below his collar. It's not a Confederate flag, it's a Union Jack. And she goes, that's even worse. And I'm, no, it's not. Why do you have it on your shirt? And he doesn't know it's even on there. He doesn't. And his shirt's made in. Tell me who makes shirts that have a Union Jack on it. Google it for me. You guys probably know. But she wouldn't back it down. And I mean, it wasn't like a real huge fight or anything. But it's not the Confederate flag. It's a Union Jack. It's a British flag. And she's like, that's even worse. Union Jack. And it sounds racist. She didn't say that, but it was in her parentheses. And it's like, we need to be able to listen to this. Sometimes it's really becoming of us when somebody corrects us and we go, oh, holy cow, you're right, I was wrong. Herb got me with that one. No, it wasn't Herb, it was Ron Harrison. Asked this baseball rule question. I started answering it, and I didn't read his question well enough. And somebody else was given an answer, a woman, and I was like, no, that can't happen. There's too many batters in between. And she explained it, and I go, no, if you look, and then I go, wait a second, I'm going to look at what Ron wrote. And I go, oh, the way Ron wrote it, she was exactly right. And all I did was go, holy cow, I didn't read how Ron wrote the question very well, and it's my fault, you're right, I'm wrong. And it's my fault, you're right, I'm wrong. And on Facebook, she's like, that's really nice. And I'm like, well, that's my good character showing. I didn't say that. But sometimes it really is nice and it can totally de-escalate something if you can take a bit of rebuke. Respect means treating others with respect. There's two things to think about here, too. One is a police officer deserves your respect because our community hired that man to stand in a certain position with certain risk and a difficult job, and he deserves your respect because of the authority we as a community have placed in him. Right? He may ruin that at some point and may not deserve it any longer, but it starts out with he deserves your respect. Your congressperson deserves your respect, whether he's your party or not. You should say Mr. or Miss Congressperson, and respect them. But there's the other thing too, that are you the kind of person now that demands that people earn your respect before you'll offer it? If you are, you're in a weak position character-wise. We need to just treat others with respect from the beginning. If they ruin it and throw it away, you know what? I'm going to tell you to still treat them respectfully, but you don't have to respect them, right? And that's a little bit of a caveat. You need to be respectful, but you don't have to, in your heart and in your mind, actually respect them. You can know what kind of a person they are, and if you're not throwing anybody under the bus by simply treating somebody respectfully in any way. Tolerate and accept differences. This is huge. If we're going to be people with character, we need to be able to accept that some people are different than us. We need to not only tolerate it, but to actually accept it. Let people be wrong. It's not the end of the world if somebody disagrees with you about something, whether to wear a mask or not, or if the Broncos are better than the Raiders, or whatever the deal is. It's okay. You can even be absolutely right and know you're correct, and they have a different opinion. You can still let them be wrong. You can maybe try in conversation to move a person, but you don't have to die if they still don't see it the way you see it. Just accept differences. Use good manners. William Wilberforce is the person in world history who is the most credited with ending the African slave trade and by extension the slavery of Africans, not just in America but throughout the world. William Wilberforce. In his biography, he said God put him on this world to do two things: to bring manners back to the British people in the late 1700s, to bring manners back to the British people, and to end or abolish the slave trade in the world. And he said, I could not have done the second thing without the first thing happening. He became a parliamentarian in Britain when he was in his early 20s. He was very young. And the first thing he started doing was like no more spitting on sidewalks. And he wanted those laws enforced. And no more vulgarity, no more vulgar talk in public. And he wanted those things enforced. And the reason was, if you don't support those things, you know what's going to happen? The popularity of a person of character in 30 years is going to go from over 95% to under 40% in the world where you are. And that is just exactly what's going to happen. And that's even what happened in Britain in the 1700s. It became very vulgar. Industrialization, the economy was terrible. People were working long hours and dying because of their work and not getting paid well. And they just gave into it. And he said, I need to bring back good manners. And he did. And different things happen. And the same thing happens everywhere. You know, the deal if a neighborhood is sort of not cared for and windows are broken and graffitis left unchecked, more windows are broken, more graffiti happens. But if you go and replace the windows and paint over the graffiti, the neighborhood cleans itself up. And this is a part of what this is about. Respect. Third pillar, responsibility. I said I was going to go fast. I felt like I'm going slow. Responsibility. Go to the ant, O sluggard. I love this. I like when the Bible calls us names. I think it's kind of it's instructive to me. O sluggard, and consider her ways and be wise. And what it was, the ant is constantly at work doing what it's supposed to do. Train up a child in the ways he should go. Focus on in the way. You might not think, to train up a child in the way they should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. It's a verse that a lot of us hang on to. There's a lot of parents I know that have had a kid kind of drift away when the others haven't, and we hang on to this verse in hope. But the key to this verse is in the ways he should go. And what that's talking about is what we're responsible to, what we're held to be kind of reliable to. Responsibility talks about do what you're supposed to do. There's a lot of families that have this. I know Mark and Vicki have it. And by the way, happy birthday, Mark. You guys have, what do Tuckers do?
Birthday pie.
They do birthday pie, but you've got the other things.
Breakfast, birthday pie.
I've seen you do it to the boys. You say, that's not what Tuckers do. What do Tuckers do? And they give you an answer. And they got like 10 or 12 of them, I'm sure. But it's like, we don't cry when we're whatever. And they literally can do the speech. And that's the deal. We look to that. In Kohlberg's cognitive moral development theory, which is a psychological thing that I sort of dig a lot, the biggest move for him, the difference between being in prison and not being in prison, being a productive member of society, involves two major moves. And the first one is that I move my ethics away from my own self-interest, and I move it to the self-interest of my family, or my tribe at the greatest degree, which might be my extended relations or my church family. But and then the next one beyond that is you move to principle orientation rather than law and order, rules orientation. Those are the two most important things towards developing yourself at a level of good character. Proverbs is on top of this 3,000 years before Lawrence Kohlberg was born. And it's an amazing thing. Plan ahead, being diligent, and perseverance are all part of responsibility. If you think about, you could look responsible for a moment, but if you don't let this play itself out over the course of time, both looking from where I am to where I'm trying to go, and then looking at I'm in the middle of all of this, and I need to be diligent and keep on pushing. That's what the ant does. And so pay attention to that. You're accountable for words, actions, and attitudes. That's part of being responsible. If I said it, I'm accountable for it. I need to follow through. My fourth pillar is fairness. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. Proverbs 31:9. This is in the Godly Woman section, but it's good for all of us. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. Proverbs 16:11. A just balance of scales are the Lord's. All the weights in the bag are His work. That's an amazing verse. When you think about what fairness is, I used to sell fruit at a fruit stand, and I had a trailer and I'd go load it up every morning, and by 7:30 or so, you're out there in the parking lot somewhere selling fruit. At the time, we would pound it out. That's what you called it. And it meant that I had a scale. And the scale I had was beautiful. It was my grandfather's scale from his country grocery store back in Kit Carson that he used from like 1935 until he retired. And I had this scale that was literally almost 100 years old. He bought it used. I knew that. And there's a guy in the valley that he has to come to your scales and certify them. And he has this amazing little bag of weights that are all in velvet. And he knows, and he puts the weights in the thing, and he looks at where it is, and he certifies your scale. And what this is talking about, fairness, means that we understand that even though the playing field may not always be level, we are going to do the very best we can to play fairly no matter what goes on. And that's little kids' rules. Take turns and share. That's one of the first things about fairness. In the world we live in today, people of low character they go to power. And they say, I've got the power, I've got the looks, I've got the position in the job hierarchy, I've got whatever it takes to win at this right now. And so I'm going to be the one who wins. Don't do that. Be open-minded. Listen to others. This is a part of fairness. Unfair people can't hear the other person's story. We need to be able to hear their story. Don't take advantage of others. There's times when you literally are the judge. And it's so easy. It's your kid against another kid. I was bad at that because I would naturally go for the other kid's side. My poor kids had to double prove their case to me. And I think, though, that what you really want to do is pay attention to the fact that you have some authority or some power in different situations, even if it's just you and two other friends, and they're coming to you to mediate somehow. You have the ability to take advantage of people. Don't do it just because you have the ability to do it. The fifth pillar is caring. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor will himself crawl out and not be answered. If you're not caring for others, it's gonna come around and bite you. Whoever, Proverbs 19:17, this is one of my favorite verses. Not only in Proverbs but in the Bible. Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and He will repay him for his deed. This means God has your back if you take care of the poor. We have a budget team meeting tomorrow night. Reminder to anybody on the budget team. I think most of you guys are at home today, but budget team meeting tomorrow night. You know, one of the things, Joanne, our accountant, is like, yeah, everything's really good. There's only one place where you're spending more money than you have. And I know where it is. I don't even have, it's benevolence. And we had a lot of money given for benevolence at the start of COVID. A lot. And I was able to distribute that, but we still have needs. Got a call the other night, and one of the old Dave here in the church, every now and again, I accidentally rub one of the homeless people off onto one of you. And Dave got one, and he's had him for 4 months now. And I needed Dave one night. Needed somebody with a pickup to help him out. And ever since then, Dave's his best friend. And Dave calls and they needed a hotel room. It's him and his mother. They needed it for 3 days. And we don't do hotel rooms that often anymore. That gets to be trouble. You buy a hotel room for somebody and they throw a TV through the window. You're all of a sudden paying $2,000 for a hotel room that you were trying to help somebody with. But we know this guy and was a fair amount of money, and we ran out of all that benevolence money that we had so much of. And I know after the first we'll have a couple. But you know what? I was like, we got money in the bank account. We may not have it in the benevolence budget, but we have it in the bank account. And so, and if there's anything our church is going to be in trouble for when you get to heaven, and God holds you accountable to the church you went to, Jesus is going to be up there going, you guys kept giving money to people that didn't deserve it. And I can just see him thinking, he could have done so much mission work with that. But I also know that God is going to say, but you know what? You were careful with the poor. And I got your back on that, even if you gave too much. We need to be careful with that. Kind, compassionate, empathetic. Be grateful and forgiving is a big part of this. Are any of you looking at the folks that are really hurting in this world and recognizing with gratitude that, we used to say that for the grace of God, there go I. That could be me. It would be so easy to all of a sudden. I told you a couple of weeks ago that most of the men that are in the park across the street, homeless, alcoholic, sleeping wherever they can find a place to sleep, most of those guys at one point were in a home with their wife and children, and now they're not. And so it can happen so fast. It happens to them, it can happen to us. Help those who are in need. The last one is citizenship. Oops, I'm pushing it wrong. I've got to turn this off and turn it back on. Citizenship, sixth pillar. God say to your neighbor, go, come again. Tomorrow I will give it when you have it with you right now. That's good advice. Citizenship is going to talk about this. I think maybe going forward 2 verses. Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. That's good. You do this too. You live in a world where the amount of energy you put into locking your doors depends a whole lot on your neighbors, right? And you want to be the kind of person that your neighbor would be trusting you. So what are the things that we're looking for here? Citizenship, do your part to make your home, your school, your community, and your larger world better. That's the key. That's the key. Saw one young man yesterday. MBA has decided to support the Black Lives Matter movement completely, and so they're wearing uniforms that are Black Lives Matter uniforms. All their sweats are BLM sweats. They've got it painted on the basketball courts. They are really invested in it. One man yesterday in the Nuggets game didn't kneel. He stood during the national anthem. Remember when it was weird when you kneeled during the national anthem? Everybody hated you for that. It's 5 years later. Now if you're the only one that doesn't kneel, everybody hates you for that. But what he did, he explained it himself really, really well. And he said, my big goal overall is to do good for my neighbors. And this guy's a black guy. And he goes, and I don't think that the route that we're supporting is the best way to do this. And he goes, and furthermore, I can't bow to anybody other than Jesus. But I just see a better plan. And not only, as he explains himself, he works up $1 million worth of donations from his teammates to do what he sees as a better approach to actually doing something good. This is why I'm sort of irritating, because I do not like protest marches and ribbons. Do you know what I mean when I say that? The people go, silence is violence. And I'm like, maybe it is, but I'm not necessarily silent either. But I don't know what good it does for the people that life is working with for me to tie a yellow ribbon around my antenna and then say that when people go, what's that ribbon for? I go, it's for the girls in Kenya. And the girls in Kenya, meanwhile, are like, I didn't notice anything happening right then. I do know that when we get money and pay their health insurance, for some of them, it's a life changer, right? And so do the thing that you feel is going to make the world better. Cooperate and volunteer. This is a big part of it. So be cooperative. You don't have to fight about everything. This is where the citizenship is the most screwed up in America right now. We've gotten to this place in America where we think the only thing we can do to be a good citizen is to yell at each other, right? It's like screaming at a guy because he's got a Union Jack logo on the back of his shirt. I've seen people this week on because I watch Facebook for the news. I saw a lady screaming at little children, 5 years old. Anybody else see this one? I hope you die. I hope you die. Why did she hope they died? Because they were in Walmart without a mask. And the poor mom's wearing a mask, and she's like, they're not. They're under 10. They don't have to wear a mask. Yes, they do. I hope you all die. And I know that woman went away and was like, I am a good American. You know what I mean? I know she's feeling that way. It's crazy. It's nuts. We don't have to do this. Stay informed and vote. And I'm not going to tell you how or who to vote for. But I'm going to tell you that you have a responsibility to do that. That's 6 character qualities. The pillars of character. And I know that in my life, I think about these things and I find them helpful to me. Praise team's going to come and lead us in a song. I think the song's going to focus on Jesus and who we need to be in such a way, Father, that we can be moved towards good character. Father, it's in Jesus' name I pray.